our Father, oh, stand by and we will watch the flames burn over on the mountainside. And if we should die tonight, we should all die together. Raise a glass of wine for the last time. Holding our Father, oh, prepare as we will watch the flames burn over on the mountainside. Desolation comes upon the sky. Now I see fire inside the mountain. I see fire burning the trees, and I see fire hollow souls. I see fire burning the breeze. I hope that you remember me. Surely I'll do the same. Come finding mountain holes. We got too close to the flame. Calling out, Father, oh, hold fast and we will watch the flames burn over on the mountainside. Desolation comes upon the sky. Now I see fire inside the mountain. I see fire. You remember me.
Give it back. You hijacked my mind, so I'm falling in circles. Can't catch no fall, so I need you to be close. 'Cause where you go, I'll follow. So give it back. In my bed, sleeping hard, I cannot explain what's in my head. Long
our freedom, too caught up in time. Training up on values, boost the bottom line. He can't think of theirs, yo, until he's lost his mind. Holding on to what's here, then told to trust fear of losing what's owned. When the cost of one soul amounts to what we are using, so what's owed? We're under control, pursuing some weird illusion, but what's known? When making these choices relies on someone's exclusion, and what we're choosing means we're all losing. We're losing, living just for having, striving or surviving. Just how much more do we need before we're happy? Will you stand for something or keep chasing more? Working just for living, surviving while we're thriving. Just how much more can they take before we're happy? If you don't stand for something, we'll end up with more for the less and more stress for the rest of us. Saying with no giving, natural law defy. Conflicts orchestrated, crime that goes untried. He keeps craving power, they just want their pride. But neither one can have it, all part of the design. Holding on to what's here, then told to trust fear of losing what's owned. When the cost of one soul amounts to what we are using, so what's owed? We're under control, pursuing some weird illusion, but what's known? When making these choices relies on someone's exclusion, and what we're choosing means we're all losing. We're losing, living just for having, striving or surviving. Just how much more do we need before we're happy? Will you stand for something or keep chasing more? Working just for living, surviving while we're thriving. Just how much more can they take before we're happy? If you don't stand for something, we'll end up with more for the less and more stress for the rest of us. Oh yeah.
that is a feeling that makes you feel very bad.
The blues has always been a state of being. Well, it's a way of singing. They try to run, they try to hide, they cannot hide. Blue sky, you see the big stars riding all over.
There's no point of living in sorrow. My body leads my mind. My thoughts just fade away. The pleasure beats the pain. The pleasure beats the pain.
The blues has always been a state of being. Well, it's a way of singing. When you
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the second day of the World Summit. And I'm just here to introduce the moderator for our next keynote, the director of the Arts Promotion Centre of Finland, Minna Sörnö, and she will do the introductions for our keynote speaker today. Thank you and welcome again.
Good morning, everybody. Yesterday we talked a lot about crises, and I think that today we are starting with the hope. A few days ago, I read an article about how people in Syria are hiding art and books on the ground so that the art and the books are safe from bombing. I was moved. That article reminded me once again how powerful art is in human lives. Art is our soul's food, and because of that, also one of our basic needs. On the next Monday, we are celebrating the International Human Rights Day. According to United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, we all have a fundamental right to participate in culture and cultural life, even in the middle of the crisis. At least to me, art is human right. And that's why I'm honored to introduce you our keynote speaker. He is a living proof of the healing power of art. He is a survival of the torture and Pol Pot regime. He has made big bosses and presidents cry. Today, he gives hope to all of us. He is An Chuan-Bon, and he is going to tell us his extraordinary life story. An, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. This particular song is not a traditional Cambodian song, or we call it traditional Khmer song. It's a pretty bad song. Probably the first piece that I learned how to play, the Khmer Rouge forced me to play this song during they took over Cambodia in 1975 when I was just 12 years old. They took me to, and 700 other children to live and to die in a Buddhist temple where they converted into a killing place where children put to live there and to work there and to die there. We were not prisoners. And the camp was, the Khmer Rouge killing people like 3 or 4 times a day. And in the midst of this killing, the Khmer Rouge said they wanted to start a dance troupe. I raised my hand, and 5 other children raised their hands, and 20 other kids raised their hand to be the dancer. And they brought an old man to come to teach us. Only a few weeks later, this is a song where they want an old man to teach us how to play. It's glorifying the blood, and it started, I know from this song, it started to brainwash us about killing already. And I remembered people were dying around us. And the Khmer Rouge, it seemed to be like another job for me was to learn the music, but also to push people into the grave. After they hit them in the back of their head with the little axe, they made special axe they made and hit people in the head, whether they died or alive. The killing sometimes in our center, they brought the children together in a circle, and the Khmer Rouge would kill people in front of us, and they look at us in the eyes. And I saw them kill children when they cry out. So I learned how to shut myself off completely. I make myself numb. I don't smell the blood anymore. And I did that very well. If you see you see the blood, you smell the dirt, and hear the screaming of the people for mercy. And when you hear the sound of the axe hitting the people's skulls, it's like hitting a coconut shell. I can even hear it today. I can hear it right now. Then the suffering is unbearable. You would go crazy. You would go insane. I survived there. Sometimes by just practicing. I didn't start with the flute. I started with something called the dulcimer, where this old masters, white-haired old guys, I didn't even know his name, and he said, "You better learn fast." I'm not sure what he meant by that. But 2 or 3 weeks later, he just taught us how to play basic. Then the Khmer Rouge took him, and three other boys who were slow to learn the music, they all ended up in a mango grove. It was very lucky that they didn't ask me to kill my master. And they play games with the dead, you know, the Khmer Rouge. Sometimes they have me play music. I play for the leaders, their leaders. Sometimes I know when I play the music, they put the microphone in front of my instruments. And I knew that they use the sound of my music to cover up the scream behind us. They don't want us to hear the screaming of the people they killed. Few years later, in 1979, when the Vietnamese invaded Cambodia, only few of us survived in that camp. I was one of the lucky ones. They took my instruments away. The Khmer Rouge came and gave me guns. Like thousands of other children. The Khmer Rouge, I remember they gave me guns, and they looked at me, and they said, "This might help you. The bigger guns, the more power you're going to have. And that might help you." I don't know what they mean by that. Now you're on your own, they say. One of you killed 10 Vietnamese, that would be good. So I was like among thousands of other kids were trucked out, and they used us as a decoy to go and shoot, draw the fire first. We were not trained how to do that. I saw some kids were like cleaning their guns, and they put their eyes into the guns and blow their head off. And in the battlefields, children who can just carry guns, you know, anybody who can just, I drag the gun sometimes because I was too tired. And the Vietnamese were so good. Like sometimes we didn't have any order to take off. The Khmer Rouge would shoot us behind. And I didn't know what side we were on. And the Khmer Rouge said, trust them. And sometimes I trust them, but they shoot they shoot my friends. Any water? Can I have water? Thank you. I also watch my little brother, my little sister starve to death. They starved my little brother and my sister. I could not take it living like that, watching little children get shot in the left and the right from me, and I hold them. A lot of blood was all over me and feeling powerless to help them. That's a feeling I never want to ever feel again. I ran off from the line, and it was 50% chance that you live in the jungle by yourself. You can be eaten by animals. I follow monkey for food. I don't know how long I was there. But I ended up unconscious along the border of Thailand. I didn't know that it was Thailand. I didn't know that people speak different language. I thought the world was around, you know. I was a little kid. When I woke up, I saw some of the girls who took me from the border. They put stuff in my body, And when I woke up, I was on the way. They weigh me, I think. I feel like a pig. You know, they weigh me, and I saw, I was probably 30 pounds. And I saw, I was almost died on the floor and with many other children, but then there's something stepped on my foot, and I clung to him. They call him Americans. Later on, he's a white man, and he came back the next morning and trying to find food for me. And I've never met American before, and this is Mr. Peter Pond, who's later become my adopted father. In 1980, he took me to New Hampshire in America. The next day, he took me to high school. And in New Hampshire, somewhere, I think near Canada, I remember kids coming out from the high school. They all white kids. There were no black, no Haitian, no other races, but white kids. And I was stunned, standing there in the front in the hallway, and they were stunned seeing me. I thought my life got better, arriving in America. People told me that America, they have money, big building, nice car. But no, I saw the jungle again in New Hampshire. This jungle over there. And kids started making fun of me, in high school. I heard the word monkey. They called me monkey. They didn't know it hurts people when they do that. I was angry all the time. And I was in a deep depression. It seemed like nobody was on my side. The school didn't understand where I came from, and the kids start, every day they call me name. I want a gun. I don't want to live anymore. My foster father, I think he was really serious. He looked at me in the eyes. He told me that I might survive the jungle of Cambodia, but I might not survive the jungle of New Hampshire. And I think he was really serious about it. And I wanted to buy a gun, and he said, no. You talk to them. You tell them your story. I can't tell them I can't speak English. I can't speak a word of English. I know 2 words, rice, bathroom. That's all I learned from the camp. And he said, no, it took me a long time because I don't believe that American teenager would want to hear what happened to me, would want to hear about what happened to Cambodia. They don't even know where Cambodia is. They are busy. They are too busy with mall. They are too busy with their lives, I don't think they care. First, I start to play music again. And they said, trust me. They sounded like Khmer Rouge, Very forceful to say, share your story. Trust me, they like it. I didn't trust them in the beginning. I just play my flute. And then I began to talk. I memorized the word by heart, and I talked to the American kids, and words go across that this guy finally talking. Sometimes I didn't talk, I just play the flute, and American kid come and hug me and cry. I thought they never cry. They told me that, so I more and more now playing music. Wow, I said, wow, just play music, people cry. That's something I don't know, never know. It takes a long time for me also. First thing for me, that probably a turning point in my life, that I cried one time. That's strange. I had a funny feeling, crying. But it seemed like I feel better after I cry. I met, after I learned how to speak, I went to Lowell, Massachusetts regional school there. I spoke to a high school. Lowell is the second largest Cambodian population in America, where Cambodian refugees resettle there. And I spoke there and played my flute, and there's three boys who were like gangsters. They were not big gangs, you know, they called themselves Siaja. After my speech, they came to me and say, I like your speak very much. You know, you talk about Cambodia, about your life in Cambodia, and my parents never talk about it to us. And they were very angry. They were confused. They felt like crazy, you know, and I can identify that. And there were also some black Haitian gang members coming around, because these three guys are the big guys. They can rap very well, you know. And they said, wow, but I'm more impressed about your playing Cambodian flute, you know. Can we do something together? So I helped them to create a studio in Lowell, where they are now helping other gang members to come to the studio and rap. I wanted to do something with them, but I told them the way they rap is no good, you know. They rap about killing the cop, killing the police, because they were angry. And I'm not sure why their parents don't talk to them about Cambodia. They survived Cambodia also, but they didn't talk. And these kids, they don't know who they are. I feel like I was. I didn't know whether I'm American or Cambodian. I was still confused about where I came from and what I went through. I don't know. I was so confused. And these kids are almost the same. They feel the same. And what connects us was I played the flute, and he said, then I tried to do something with them. But one thing I told them that I'm committing to this. I don't want any rap, killing the police or any violent rap. They say, okay. It takes them a long time to change their idea, because I'm committed to write something good, not killing people anymore. 20 years ago, I went back to Cambodia. I found Cambodian living arts. I must go back to Cambodia because I still have nightmares. There's something in me that I must go back to face my past. If I stayed in America, I don't know what had happened to me, but it helps me when I started to speak and play my music again. I start to raise money because I think speaking and playing music probably saved my life. The second time, I realized that playing music for the Khmer Rouge just was to survive, you know. I do it to live because I was afraid to die. I have to do whatever they told me to do, the Khmer Rouge, including shooting people. They told me that's power. I would shoot American kids too if they just stare at me. But lucky I changed my life around. That's thanks to my foster father and few friends like Judith Thompson, John Bird, who eventually I believed them, I trust them. They told me to believe them. I tried to find, my passion was to try to find, to help my art and culture and the music that saved my life. I found out that when I went back, 90% of the artists had died, including my family. I found out my dad and my mom and many of members of my family own an opera company that I didn't even know of. That's the only reason they were slaughtered or starved to death. I feel whole in my life going back there. So all the music, the history, the dance that I grew up with, listening to, were all going to disappear with them. In Cambodia, the arts passed down from one generation to other generations in a person, not with books. So I started to find surviving masters and I want them to teach the children in their village again. Ten years later, we have 20 classes that Cambodian Living Arts is supporting. We have thousands of kids are now learning. Despite of everything we went through, the art was still surviving. The next generation now of the young people in Cambodia, they had dreams of becoming artists. They want to perform for the audience, you know, they want to go to college, they want to travel. They are so proud of their art and culture, and I'm very happy to see this. Before I saw my people, and especially the young people, lost a sense of their identity, the sense of pride. They lose all the confidence. They were beaten up time to time again. After nearly 20 years, our job, our Cambodian Living Arts job now are changing again. These young artists, you know, young masters many of them are now independent, you know. They have more skills than before. and they want to use their arts as a way to have a positive change in their lives, in their family life, and their community, and hopefully in the world. They have their dreams. And they're becoming, some of them becoming an entrepreneur, like innovator, like create something new. And they build confidence when they perform, when they start dancing. Remember Siaja Group from Lowell, Massachusetts, the rapper? Cambodian Living Arts sponsored them, commissioned them to go to Cambodia with us for the first time to introduce rapping, hip-hop to Cambodia, to young people on TV for the first time. And I like to say, Tony ended up there. Now he writes only love song, even puppy love, you know. They wrote, and even write peace song, peaceful song, you know. That's what I would like them to do, because I'm committed to peace, and they must commit it to peace. They used to write, you know, lyrics like money. They only want money, gold teeth, all selling and buying products because they were sponsored by the business people and with politicians. So they have to talk whatever they told. So now he's independent. He's now owning a studio himself and helping young people out of the street in his studio. And the two other boys now still in Lowell also have one or two studios that they are Felix and Sam, who's also completely changed now. They're not a gangster anymore. Now they are peacemaker. I mean, they don't do great in their lives now. Felix is a nice guy, and Sam, you know, they have girlfriends and kids. They're doing good. You know, I really admire them. What I like the most now is something we just started. The first Khmer Magic Music Bus, where I take a joy by just driving it, play music for the children to reintroduce traditional music to the villagers far, far away in Cambodia. For them, many of them were ex-Khmer Rouge. They killed that kind of music in the first place. They spared a boy. They missed a boy. So that's how I settle my score. I take music back to them, to their children, right in the face. With the Khmer Magic Music Bus, it's not only promoting traditional, reintroducing Khmer music to these children that in their whole life they've never heard live music or touched any instrument before. Why then are we giving them musical instruments instead of guns? Why can't we do that? They've done that so easily for me. They took my instrument away, they gave me guns. Why can't we do vice versa? My wish is not only for Cambodia children alone. I grew beyond Cambodia now. My wish is for children all over the world. Every child should be carrying a musical instrument, not guns. We should do it now because they've done it for us. Why can't we do it together? One thing I want to finish and play a good song. This time I'm going to play for you. But I just want to say, first of all, Thank you to Sarah and Anna Maria for having me here. For having me talk about Cambodia, about my life, for introducing me to the world here. You are very nice people from all over the place. We already exchanged some address already from Rwanda, South Africa, Brazil, Hong Kong, Singapore. We already networking. We will do it without money or with money because it's our lives. I know many of you share your story also. That's very important now. Tony, and I want to share one girl now, one young girl, not fair to share only a boy, but a girl who 15 years ago, I saw her in a village in Cambodia, very timid, cannot speak, scared. We introduced her to a woman who can smote. Smote is a chanting, a Buddhist chanting, where it's already disappearing already. It chant is a beautiful chant about Buddhism or about social issue. You can do that to a blind woman who will become her teacher. 15 years ago. And now, I told her, we will find job for you. Please do this. And now we don't usually promise them anything because we're afraid that we could not pull it off. That's a bad thing to promise and not pulling it off. But I spent some time with her. We will find job for you. I knew that at least I could have money in my pocket to give to her. And she took it. And she's now, after we brought her to America one time, and she went back to Cambodia, every girl in her village want to smoke, want to do this art form. And now she has her own business, selling the ceremonial products, Buddhist ceremonial products. And all now beautiful girl, now she's confident, she's just smote, not dancing, not anything like that, but just smote from her beautiful voice. And now she was sitting, I saw her last week before I got here. They have An Chon Pon Scholarship, something that they've never know, An Chon Pon Scholarship, because I'm sick of this artist, of this young, shaker and mover, complaining no money. I feel for them. Where girl dancing for commercial, sexy clothes. We have Korean pop now in our Cambodia, and sexy girls sing nothing, just selling nothing. And with sex suggestion, they make all the money. And the girls are dancing, they go crazy, because they have a lot of problems with selling themselves, selling their souls to the products. And where our kids having the arts that save our soul, that lead to our lives, that talks about our lives, talk about social issue, no money. Where are we going? Where's our world go? You have to tell the politician and the business people to invest the money where their mouth is. Otherwise, in the end, we are going to go down together. Nobody spared of this. Nobody. So before I close, for you guys that are also, I hear this all around about sad, no money, no money. And we have to come we have to come together one more time to save the world. We need not only politicians, but we need we have businessmen here too, we have politicians to be with us, for them to play music, to really feel how we really feel. When I feel this, sometimes, when they need us, we perform for them. When they don't need us, they spit us out like a cherry pit. They kill us too. That's not nice. When they make profit out of us. I learned this too, that when I was carrying guns, in Cambodia we don't make our own guns. I carried guns that made in Russia, that made in China, that made in America. And I know this, that when I carry gun and shoot each other, someone make money out of that. And I didn't want to mention what country that children carrying gun and shoot each other, they make profit out of that. Why can't we give them a musical instrument, do it now, and make a profit out of it? Not guns. Can we do that? I think we can. So I'm going to play, if you are sad, I'm going to give this to you, all of you from different countries, a song that's not going nowhere yet. It's lullaby. It's called Bombay in my country, and every woman knows, every mother knows, every child knows this song, and it's not going anywhere. It's still around. So I'm going to play this song for you, and are we good on time? Okay. Play a song, and then we go. Thank you.
You make it count.
So there's a little time, sorry. There's a little time for comments or questions. If you have any questions or comments to Ann. Okay, everybody is so moved and speechless after this. Yeah, me too. So thank you very much, Ann.
I just want to say I heard that students in Cambodia, the students in Cambodia and our staffs are watching from over there. So I have also here, if anybody want to talk about Cambodian living art and come visit the living arts in Cambodia, please come. And we have Pluen, my founder, executive director is here, my team, and Kai, can you get up? If people want to talk to you about going to Cambodia over there, Mr. Businessman. We have a businessman here who is now becoming an artist. Why not? We have a politician coming, they're joining. So please get them. So I want to say that here Malta is to Cambodia. You're going to come next time, not me, to see the world. And Malta is beautiful. Maltese know how to party. They have a lot of good food here. And it's beautiful here. And see the little country they have, and beautiful here. So you come next. So thank you for all your work out there too. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah? Oh.
I just wanted to say thank you. I think we all needed that. Thank you very much. I can't even begin to express what I'm feeling right now, but the only words I have for you is a very big thank you.
So maybe we all go and sweep our tears with the coffee. Maybe? Yeah. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That goes down on music. We don't sing no more. Where's the music gone? Tell me where the music goes. Just for the good. We don't sing no more. All the soul is gone. Tell me, tell me. They don't sing no more. Where's the music gone? Tell me, can we get back? Can we get back? I wanna talk it back. I'm gonna talk it back. I'm gonna sing it back. I'm gonna sing it back. All the music's gone. It's gone. All the soul is gone. No, let's take it back. Take it back. Take it back. Take it back. I'm gonna sing my song.
sound, yeah, and still we bout to get down. Who the hottest in the world right now? Just touched down in London town. Bet they give me a pound. Tell them put the money in my hand right now. Tell the promoter we need more seats. We just sold out all the floor seats.
Take me on a trip, I'd like to go someday. Take me to New York, I'd love to see LA. I really want to come kick it with you. You'll be my American boy. He said, hey sister, it's really, really nice to meet ya. I just met this 5'7" guy who's just my type. Like the way he's speaking, his confidence is peaking. Don't like his baggy jeans, but I'ma like what's underneath there. And no, I ain't been to MIA. I heard that Calais never rains and New York's harder ways. First, let's see the West End. I showed you to my bedroom. I'm liking this American boy, American boy. Take me on a trip, I'd like to go someday. Take me to New York, I'd love to see LA. I really want to come kick it with you. You'll be my American boy, American boy.
You want to? Oh, then. Nisma. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Munix ngħajjat assolutamente. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. L-nista dak temmek.
Take me to Broadway. Let's go shopping, baby. Then we'll go to a cafe. Let's go on a subway. Take me to your hood. I've never been to Brooklyn, and I like to see what's good. Dress in all your fancy clothes. Sneakers looking fresh to death. I'm loving those shell toes. Walking down the wall, that slick talk. I'm liking this American boy, American boy. Take me on a trip, I'd like to go someday. Take me to New York, I'd love to see LA. I really want to come kick it with you. You'll be my American boy. Tell 'em I'm wobbler.
Who killing them in the UK? Everybody gonna say UK. Reluctantly, cause most of this press don't fuck with me. And still one said to me, cool down, down. Don't act a fool now, now. I always act a fool, ow, ow. Ain't nothing new now, now. He crazy, I know what you're thinking. Rapping, I know what you're drinking. Rap singer, chain blinger. Holler at the next chick soon as you're blinking. What's your persona about this Americana? Rhymer, am I shallow? Cause all my clothes designer. Dress smart like a London bloke. Before he speak, his soup he spoke. And you thought he was cute before. Look at his peacoat, tell me he's broke. And I know you ain't in the war that. I heard your lyrics, I feel your spirit. But I still talk that cat ass. She's a lot of wags, wanna hear it. And I'm feeling like Mike at his baddest. Like the Pips at the Gladys. And I know they love it. So the hell with all that rubbish.
Would you be my love? Would you be mine? Would you be my love? Would you be mine? Could you be my love? Would you be my American boy? American boy.
get a good feeling, yeah. Get a feeling that I never had before. No, no, I get a good feeling, yeah. this is to end in fire, then we shall all burn together. Watch the flames climb high into the night, calling out, Father, oh, stand by and we will watch the flames burn over and on the mountainside. And if we should die tonight, we should all die together. Raise a glass of wine for the last time, calling out, Father, oh, prepare as we will watch the flames burn over and on the mountainside. Desolation comes upon the sky. Now I see fire inside the mountain. I see fire burning the trees, and I see fire hollow souls. I see fire burning the breeze. I hope that you remember me. Surely I'll do the same. Come finding mountain holes. We got too close to the flame. Calling out, Father, oh, hold fast and we will watch the flames burn over and on the mountainside. Desolation comes upon the sky. Now I see fire inside the mountain. I see fire burning the trees. I see fire hollow souls. I see fire burning the breeze. And I hope that you remember me.
Give it back. You hijacked my mind, so I'm falling in circles. Can't catch no fall, so I need you to be close. 'Cause where you go, I'll follow. So give it back. In my bed, sleeping hard, I cannot explain what's in my head, longing for an this place to stop. Never been the same since you got me. My mind away. Now that I'm torn apart and ran away, is when you come for my heart. There's nothing left to say, and I don't know where to start. Give back my thoughts today. Give it back. You hijacked my mind, so I'm falling in circles. Can't catch no fall, so I need you to be close. 'Cause you go off hollow, so give it back. Give it back. You hijacked my mind, so I'm falling in circles. Can't catch no fall, so I need you to be close. 'Cause you go off hollow, so give it back. You hijacked my mind, so I'm falling in circles. Can't catch no fall, so I need you to be close. 'Cause you go off hollow, so give it back.
Too busy for kindness. Hope keeps passing by.
Unlimited is a commission.
Justified by freedom. Too caught up in time. Training up on values. Boost the bottom line. He can't think of this, y'all, until he's lost his mind. Holding on to what's here, then told to trust fear of losing what's on. When the cost of one soul amounts to what we are using. So what's owed? We're under control, pursuing some weird illusion. But what's known? When making each choice relies on someone's exclusion. And what we're choosing means we're all losing. We're losing. Living just for having, striving or surviving. Just how much more do we need before we're happy? Will you stand for something or keep chasing more? Working just for living, surviving while we're thriving. Just how much more can they take before we're happy? If you don't stand for something, we'll end up with more for the less and more stress for the rest of us. Saying with no giving, natural law defy. Conflicts orchestrated, crime that goes untried.
What I had for breakfast, what I had for lunch.
Keeps craving power, they just want their pride. But neither one can have it.
The main
Part of the design. Holding told to trust, fear losing what's owned. When the cost of one soul amounts to what we're not using, so what's owned? We're under control, pursuing some weird illusion. But what's known? When making these choices relies on someone's exclusion. And what we're choosing means we're all losing. We're losing. Living just for heaven, striving on surviving. Just how much more do we need before we're happy? Will you stand for something or keep chasing more? Working just for living, surviving while we're thriving. Just how much more can they take before we're happy? If you don't stand for something, we'll end up with more for the less and more stress for the rest of us. Oh yeah. Looking down.
Welcome back for the next panel discussion, new directions, new approaches. Whether we view a cultural leader as this sort of cultural superhero or as a cultural misfit depends on the approach individuals take to lead the change they want to see. Their approach may be from within the sector or from outside the sector. They may be from within institutions or in the form of actions taken by individual artists. And I think we've witnessed an excellent example this morning. In whatever context they are operating from, cultural leaders thrive in risk and transform this into an opportunity. Now, perhaps we all know that there is no magic wand on how to create better or new cultural leaders, but perhaps everyone has the potential to create something that positively impacts the internal and external cultural environment. Great or poor leadership, be it cultural or otherwise, will undeniably leave a remarkable impact on our future. And before introducing the wonderful speakers for this panel, I would like us to go live now, live link, far away, which is actually a couple of meters, because we're going to connect to the hub outside the Mediterranean Conference Center. So let's see if we have they're there. And I'm going to... So I have a question that kicks off this panel to the wonderful people out there. You met for the first time 2 days ago. You're spending 72 hours together to create, to co-create, to curate, and co-curate in a multidisciplinary environment. So what has happened so far in the past couple of hours, and does this reflect in any way a new approach towards creative practice, or are cultural policy makers simply trying to catch up with you?
Welcome back to the Creative Hub, where you can see there's been some very creative upcycling of the conference bags going on. Thank you, Tony. What a question. I think the response to quote Elvis Presley would be maybe a little less conversation, a little more action. This incredible, talented group of people here have brought their skills together remarkably quickly and have got on with doing things in really meaningful, hands-on collaborations. What that means for institutions and for cultural policy, I think, is there is a need to catch up. This thing is happening anyway. I think cultural policy can enable and create the conditions more than actually making stuff happen. But most importantly, let's actually find out what's been happening in the hub.
So the process starts by collecting objects. All the delegates have been invited to bring an object with them which identifies them as a human being in this world. And the process starts by the team actually collecting and logging in these objects. And in the meantime, also, they're asked to speak about if their object had a character, what message of hope it would send out to the world. And then all that will be collected and turned into a soundscape which people can listen to over the course of the project. Matthew, you want to talk about upcycling?
Hi, we're upcycling some conference bags. We're doing some bookmarks, some coasters, some sculptures. It's all in progress. So if you have any bags which you're not going to use, feel free to come along and give them to us. Thank you. Ramo? Thank you.
We are relating everything happening in the Creative Hub, and we are driving the conversation online. So we are going to take all the stories and post them online to drive more feedback about what's going on here and the story of the object of our Creative Hub. So follow us and don't forget to tweet with 7B7 and the Malta Summit hashtag. Thank you.
Hi, we've been working on a parallel project which was looking to enable conversations between complete strangers where they would have to decide whether they could trust or remain suspicious of each other. We worked on software over here which allows us to control Morse code and broadcast to each other from a long distance away. Yesterday, we went out on a boat to the edge of the harbour and we filmed a conversation happening between a boat and the shore. And hopefully, we'll have a version of this playing in the hub tomorrow.
Yeah, so what Macy and I have been working on over the past couple of days is to back all of these different activities up by reorganizing the space using these boxes that we have. The boxes were built, and instead of bringing in normal traditional furniture, we're just using them as pixels to reorganize the space, tables, chairs, projector screens, storage devices, everything. So that's been our role mainly.
Right, we can say that we have here a prototyping example of the design cluster, which we are starting up very soon. We might say that we don't have a startup here, but we have all the ingredients that actually contribute towards a startup in today's world, in the 21st century. That is international collaboration, idea generation, discussion and dialogue, contribution by the public and feeding back into the public, and yeah, a great generosity by people to be willing to actually contribute their ideas. So it's over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Caldon. Thank you, Sheila and Peter and the rest of the guys. I'm glad that we started the conversation with the artists and the creatives at the center of our work. And surely when you look at the other side, perhaps, if it is another side, you have important documents, institutions, legal instruments that are definitely necessary to facilitate this process of leadership and change, where these institutions themselves are serving as cultural leaders. So to tell us a little bit more about that, I'd like to introduce Danielle Klisch, the Chief Section of the Diversity and Cultural Expressions and Secretary of the Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions. And the little curious thing, she also danced tango for 10 years. So ladies and gentlemen, Danielle Klisch.
Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping that this morning we'll be able to take the idea of what an international law is. It's not just a piece of paper, it's actually something that comes from human beings, from a certain momentum, from a certain problematic, and is actually there for human beings to help achieve certain objectives. So a lot of times I think international law is seen as something very static, it's a piece of paper, and I hope that through this conversation we have today, we'll see that it can be much more than that. Just to give a little bit of an orientation of my presentation this morning, I want to go through certain processes. One is that international law just doesn't emerge from the sky. There's a problem. There's a problem in the society that we want to address. And through this international law, this problem takes on a certain form. But just because there's a problem doesn't mean that the law is actually going to come into place. There needs to be a momentum. There needs to be a political will and a stakeholder engagement in order for that international law to come into adoption and then eventually into implementation. But international law is something that's not static either. It's living, it changes. We need to reflect on it. We need to monitor it, evaluate it, and adjust it depending on where we're at. We've talked a lot in the last days about the question of change. We've talked a lot about the question of leadership. And through this presentation, I would like to show you how the process leading up to this international law actually is a case study of leadership from many of the cultural superheroes who are sitting here in the audience today. They said that there was a problem, and the problem was that cultural expressions, cultural goods and services and activities were their distinctive nature, their distinctive cultural nature was not being recognized, especially within the arena of world trade. They demanded for the international community to say that these cultural goods and services are not commodities. They're not consumer goods that are to be regarded as objects of trade. This problem generated a certain type of momentum within UNESCO, but not of UNESCO itself. It said that diversity was not just tied to group differences, but was also a source of creativity, and that support for new art forms was seen as an investment in human development. This was a big change. It's a big change in the way that diversity and cultural policies were to be imagined. Following that was the Stockholm Conference, which many of you were at, who were responsible for organizing, and then, of course, the Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity, which all came together, again, reiterating this message from the problematic that was identified as cultural goods and services should not be recognized like any other form of merchandise. But this momentum for change, it didn't come from UNESCO. It came from outside the bureaucratic structures. Yesterday we talked about the fact that change can happen within and outside bureaucratic structures, and in this case, the momentum for change came from outside. There was the civil society movement. There was a new space for ministers of culture to meet, to discuss in a new international network. They met together in new spaces to dialogue. This had never happened before. This was the change that was needed to bring together a certain type of political will and stakeholder engagement to facilitate and promote change. So that's why I always say that the convention was not an invention of UNESCO itself, and it doesn't belong to UNESCO itself. It belongs to all of those who have created it. Just some quick facts for some of you who may not be aware of where we are in the process. The Convention on the Diversity of Cultural Expressions was adopted in October 2005. It entered into force in 2007. And what does that mean? That means that 50 countries around the world have translated that into their national legislation, which means that it has a force. If you don't have a certain amount of countries ratifying the convention, the law does not enter into force. Today, there are 144 countries around the world that have signed the convention, including the European Union, and there are 43 coalitions for diversity around the world. But now we have this international instrument. And I was thinking about what everybody has been talking about the last days in terms of cultural leadership. What does it mean for the future? A leadership, a change took place in order for this international law to come into force. But then what happens? What do we need now? And as Christine Merkel reminded us yesterday, you need to be a marathon runner in order for change to take place, in order for us to implement this international law. Change doesn't happen overnight, not with the type of change that we're looking for, the type of structural change we're looking for. We need to have a long-term vision and listen to the needs of all stakeholders. All stakeholders were involved in building this convention and having it adopted. All stakeholders must be involved in its implementation. But we also need to set ourselves some goals. There's too many issues, there's too many things to do. We need to keep focused. And as we talk here about crossroads, sometimes we need to go through the crossroad and not be distracted by the different interests that are approaching us as we arrive at those crossroads. And in the implementation, we need to take some risks when we can. We can't always. In terms of the convention goals towards implementation, we know that it's not like any other international law at UNESCO where you have a list, it's very clear what to do. This convention doesn't tell you what to do. So together, what we've done is we've taken all the experience that has been acquired over the last 10 years to define a pathway forward, to define a new approach to the implementation of this convention, which in fact is there to implement these guiding principles. That the countries have sovereign right to adopt policies, that we should work to ensure equitable access, openness, and balance in the flow of cultural goods and services, to recognize the economic and cultural aspects of development, and to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms. We turned these principles into goals, and from there we created something which may seem a bit complicated, but this framework was designed to help us to define, in fact, our program for the future. And our program for the future means that we are going to achieve sustainable systems of governance for culture. We're going to achieve a balanced flow in cultural goods and services and increase the mobility of artists and cultural professionals around the world. We will achieve culture in sustainable development frameworks, and we will promote human rights and fundamental freedoms, and in particular, artistic freedom. Now, this, as we can all agree, is not going to happen overnight, and we need you all superheroes to become marathon runners with us. There are certain expectations along this marathon. These expectations we are looking to refine and to monitor over a period of time to see if we're actually making the type of change that we set out to make. In terms of governance, we're striving to obtain transparency in decision-making processes, participation in civil society, in policy design and implementation, and to inform policy making through the collection of evidence that can support decisions. So far, we found out that we are still a long way from achieving those goals. There are new policies and strategies that have been adopted to reflect the convention, but we still see that civil society needs to be strengthened, that we need more data, more information, and more monitoring mechanisms to increase the possibility for transparency in decision-making. There are expectations that cultural professionals and artists will travel freely. There are expectations that measures will be introduced within new trade frameworks that recognize the specificity of cultural goods and services, and that there will be a balance in the flow. But we know that we are still a long way from achieving that. The latest data we've been able to collect shows, in fact, that there is a very long way before there can be a balance between the flow of cultural goods from the global south to the global north and around. It's not just an up-down flow, but a circular flow. Visas, as we've experienced here, there are still serious visa problems for artists, for cultural professionals to travel freely. But we do know, we have seen some signs of change, and that is in the area of trade, perhaps an area where we didn't expect so much change to occur. But we have seen some change in the development of new measures and tools to recognize the cultural aspects of cultural goods and services. I'll just hurry up a little bit. Here we have, again, culture and development. Most of you have been involved in the negotiations and the discussions that led to the 2030 agenda. The convention itself acts as an agenda for development, and this is something that we can all expect over time to achieve together. Again, we know that culture is becoming increasingly recognized and integrated into national development plans, but that on the international development assistance level, there has been a decline in ODA dedicated to culture. And in terms of our last goal, perhaps the most important one, to promote human rights and fundamental freedoms. Here we are focusing on two aspects. One is on artistic freedom, and the other on gender equality, both as cornerstones of human rights and fundamental freedoms. But we know that artists themselves are under attack worldwide, that these number of attacks have increased, especially in the last years, that threats, persecutions, imprisonments, abductions, and killings are not the only threats to artistic freedom, although they are big threats. Censorship of all kinds, including self-censorship, is also an attack on the freedom of artistic expression. We also know that freedom of artistic expression means that audiences have access to artistic expressions of all kinds. We also know that there are many environments that are not safe for those audiences to be engaged in the arts and to have access to diverse cultural expressions. So what are the next steps? And any plan for change, you need to know where you're going. You need a long-term vision. Those goals, those areas of work form part of that long-term vision, but then you need a plan. You need to go into action. What we are doing, we have three main areas of action: to collect evidence, to raise awareness, to work with people, and to provide direct financial support to civil society to support creativity and creative processes. And I hope that we can work together. I know that we will be developing a more formal partnership with IFICA, between IFICA and UNESCO, and perhaps through that framework we can develop some activities together. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. From superheroes to marathon runners, this is the call for cultural leaders. Take the risk whenever you can, or wherever you can, but also let's acknowledge the restrictions to mobility and challenges related to censorship and safety for the people to engage in culture. And let's continue working on long-term plans. But within this context, how does technology play a part, perhaps even as a cultural leader in its own way? We also have not just a marathon runner and a cultural superhero, but also a Kung Fu expert. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Octavio Cules, the Director of Editorial Teseo from Argentina, to continue this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning. I am really happy to be here.
what is the relationship between culture and digital technologies? In general, we tend to think that culture is a planet, our planet, and then digital technologies are like a meteorite that are already impacting our cultural planet, but that this may happen more in the future. So we will deal with this in some further occasion. So in any case, we tend to think as these two realities, culture and digital technologies, as if they were external. So for the purpose of the discussion, what I would like to do is to claim that this view is not helpful today. And rather, we should, as we are talking about new approaches and new directions, we should rather use a different perspective and state that culture is digital and digital is culture. Take, for example, this very conference. We are here, and superficially, we could think that this is the same kind of conferences we may have had in the 60s or the 80s or the 90s. But no, not at all. I guess you are here because you read some email, or you read this on Facebook or Twitter or on IFACA's website. You got a ticket for the plane. That was an electronic ticket, I'm sure. And it's true that we are now in a very impressive building from the 16th century, I think, but all the rest is digital, has been conceived digitally. So take, for example, the banner here, the branding, the logo, the typography. All that was built and conceived digitally. I can see you, and most of you are using some digital device, be it a computer, a camera, a mobile phone. The very sound you are listening to, my voice, is not my real voice. Maybe Tony or my colleagues from the table can listen to my analog voice, the sound waves of my voice. But what you are listening to now, and of course the people outside that are following this via streaming, are listening another kind of thing. They are listening to a converted version of my voice that was first converted into digital code and then reconverted in an analog signal. So my voice is analog and is converted digitally. The same with my image there. Well, not my shadow. That shadow and me are real. But this, you can see the delay. This is digital. The delay is because the machine is converting this into bits. And that's a good definition of digital, by the way. It's an electronic technology that converts, stores, and processes an analog signal, sound, image, whatever, into bits, ones and zeros. A string of 8 bits is a byte. Then 1,000 bytes is a kilobyte, and a megabyte, 1,000,000 bytes, and so on. So this is the digital layers that we can see everywhere here. So digital is everywhere. It's not a future, it's not something outside, it's here right now. And this is inside the cultural chain already, both in the global north and in the south. Let's take for example, the creative chain as we know it, and this is well presented in the 2005 convention. We have first creation, then production, then distribution, dissemination, access or consumption, and participation. Layer is right now throughout all the chain, across all the chain. Every link in the chain is impacted by digital technologies. You can even take, for example, the publishing industry where I come from, and if you take a book, a printed book, that book may have been printed on demand, which is a digital technology, and I'm sure that the original manuscript was not written by hand, that was conceived digitally. So it's a digital first work. The same for music, cinema, and of course video games, apps, animation. And what we can see in this new chain is that the new raw material is not wood, it's not paper, it's data. Data is the new matter of the cultural chain. And this is shared by all the cultural sectors. So we have in the cultural chain now downstream, there is a flow of goods and services, but also a flow of data, downstream and upstream, of data, those ones and zeros, and metadata, which is the data about the data. Who purchased the book? When did he or she stop reading? Etc. That's metadata attached to the data. And if this is the raw matter, any actor that can process data and metadata well will lead in the market. And this is why we are seeing very, very big players such as Google, Amazon, Facebook. This is for the West, but we can also think of Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, Xiaomi, and many others from China, and we can add, of course, Samsung in Korea and many others. That their role is to process data. So they start placing themselves in a specific link of the cultural chain, production, distribution, dissemination, you name it, and then from there they start to expand towards the sites. And nowadays, these are not just mere links in the chain, they have become the chain itself. That's why if you take, for example, the app market, you have two big markets, it's Android and it's Apple. So, and those are not just players in the market, they are the market themselves, itself. They are marketplaces. So this is why I think in terms of new approaches and good practices and examples, it's important to realize that the cultural chain has already changed a lot and is being configured like, I would say, medieval cities, fortified. Well, we are also here behind some walls, but fortified cities, Google, Amazon, etc., where data flows and where users feel they are protected, but they are also monitored, and their goods and services, well, who is the owner of those goods and services inside the fortified city? Still to be seen. And this is why, in my view, we should focus more and more in terms of getting more data. We don't have data. If you see the statistics delivered by a large number of countries in terms of cultural goods and services in the digital age, the information is very, very tiny. It's very little. We don't have information. And this is closely related to the fact that the big players, the new tech giants in the cultural scene, their very business is to pump out data from the market and sell it and resell it or use it as they see fit. So before taking any action or before suggesting any specific good practice, because of course there are sectoral measures or policies that we can address, for example, for the book industries or the music industry or the film industry, to help them to gain more skills or to gain new markets. But before doing anything, what we need is more information. Otherwise, it's like as if we were inside a maze, a labyrinth, where we don't know the way out. So I would like to finish with this metaphor, the metaphor of the maze. And if you don't know where you are, the best thing you can do is to stop, observe, get more information. Otherwise, the very haste will confuse you more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Octavio. And as we continue to meander through this maze of different practices from different contexts and different scenarios, we'll move on another step before getting back then into the whole conversation and trying to make more links between the panelists. Surely, working within a large country such as India is challenging, exciting, and inspiring. And having a cultural leader with us to talk a little bit about that will provide us with ideas and perhaps even a little bit of solutions of what other people have been trying to struggle with or continue to struggle with. So I'd now like to introduce Arundhati Ghosh. She leads the India Foundation for the Arts, working across India, and she compares her job to a daily skydiving experience. Ladies and gentlemen, Arundhati.
Good morning. Just waiting for the presentation to go up. Okay, it's fine. No problem. We'll just continue without the presentation. That's even better. Yeah, then I can just come here and speak. So, I lead India Foundation for the Arts, which is an independent grant-making organization in the arts. We raise our own funds and we make grants and project funding available to artists, cultural practitioners across the country. And we make grants in film, theater, music, you name it. If you do something and you can argue that it is the arts, you can ask for grant money from us. And I underline the word independent because what I'm going to talk about today is the need for independent funding, the need for funding that is not tied in with vested interests that might be there for different kinds of other funding that's possible. And so what I'll do is I'll begin with some of the changes that have happened in India and some countries around. One particular project, I really wish that the presentation was there because I could share some images. The arts is nothing if the visuals don't speak. And what we've learned as a foundation from this project, and finally end with some pointers on what I believe the future of independent funding should look like. And those are in terms of new approaches. I had called this presentation Changing Sightlines, from the funder's point of view, learning from the people that we support, fund, and facilitate. Now, we see ourselves as catalyst, provocateur, facilitator in the arts. These are some of the names that we use for ourselves. And some of the changes that we've been seeing in India, the first one is the rise of the fundamental right and an obsession with the market. What both of that does is that it creates a certain pressure on voices that are not the dominant narratives, voices that are not loud and noisy enough to be subdued, diluted, and over a period of time be erased. What we're also seeing is, very curiously, you can't quite distinguish between the nature of the state and the market. Not just their manifestations, but also their intentions seem so blurred. There was a time you could say state and market. It's sort of like this now. The third thing is that there's change that has happened in India. The rich have become richer. We have more number of billionaires to list. And we have more homeless people who have been displaced because of the mining industry. So we need to ask, what kind of change are we talking about? This has created a sort of polarization of voices. And the voices are so hard-lined at both ends, across ideologies, across economies, that it's impossible to find spaces for actual conversation and debate. But at the same time, there has been a rise of voices from the margins. There has been a rise of dissent, resistance, especially among young people across universities as we speak. Universities across the country, young people are voicing their demands, their right to education. They are standing against the sort of draconian laws that the right-wing government constantly wants to suppress them with. And the digital technology that, Octavio, you spoke about is actually helping. The digital ecology is helping them to have alternative voices, alternative media, because traditional media is bought over in many ways. In the arts specifically, that does a couple of things. The first one is the number of undergrounds and collectives of arts and artists have increased tremendously over the last 5-10 years. There is a strong fight between what is dominant in terms of language, region, culture within the country and what is plural and more multicultural. There's a tussle between the two. The fact that I stand here and I'm not speaking in my mother tongue is a question both of privilege and cultural dominance in some way. Blind borrowings have also happened in terms of how we measure impact in the arts, we are often borrowing from the development sector and not necessarily going back to arts and artists and scholars to ask how that impact should be measured. In terms of management, we are borrowing from the business sector or the non-profit sector, but not really finding out what we could learn from the arts sector, from within, from discourses that emerge from inside. And finally, therefore, there's public funding, there's private funding, there's foreign funding. Each of them have their many vested interests, so what could truly be independent funding? And how does a foundation like ours, therefore, over a period of time in this dynamic environment, remain focused, relevant, and ever useful to the world of arts and artists? The example I will share with you is a music project. There's a tribe of musicians whose legacy and life is music, called the Meers, who live near the borders of India and Pakistan. As you can understand, the space itself is a very a space that is not a very safe space for them to live. They are Muslims who practice music, therefore they're ostracized both from Hindu communities and Muslim communities. They speak only in dialects, they don't have writing practice, they don't have IDs or bank accounts, and their sense of time and their sense of project is also very different. They don't understand arts projects. Arts is their life. They don't understand calendar or financial time because their time is more based on the harvest season and the festival season. So as a foundation, then, we wanted to facilitate them in a project where the younger musicians the younger people in the generation wanted to learn from the older ustads. And there are 10 villages of these Mir musicians spread across the district of Bikaner, but because travel is so difficult from one village to the other, they could never really share their repertoire or share, like they would know one song in one village and there would be a different tune for that song in another village. How do they exchange among themselves? So we said, being who we are with our rules and restrictions and regulations and structures, and we can't possibly be even talking to this group. So we had to start making a lot of changes in the manner in which we make grants. This particular grant project has been an eye-opener. We've been around for 20 years, and this has been an eye-opener for us as giving us a model on how we can learn from their community practices and then create something that can be more human in terms of a funding approach. The first thing is we had to put a human face. They wouldn't email, they wouldn't talk on the phone. You had to go, spend a whole day with the community, learn to speak in their dialect, and ask them for what would they need. What do they need? Do they need money? Do they need resources? Do they need expertise? What is it that they think they need? We looked at impact measurement very interestingly. We said, so how do we do impact measurement? And we asked them. After a whole day's discussion, what they came up with is a piece of poetry by Baba Farid, which says, as you churn milk, butter comes up. So they said, oh, you mean butter? You want to know what would be the butter of this project? And that gave us a whole new way of looking at what we would consider impact. What we also had to do was look at money very differently, because their understanding of money and how they would spend it on the project, very different from the way we would sort of approach it. We also had to talk to them about reporting. They had no sense of what is reporting. This is our life. You want us to tell you what we do? We start singing the first thing in the morning and we teach the whole day, and then maybe the next week we go and harvest. And so how do we talk about reporting? Again, what we had to do was sit, learn from them, listen to their stories. Their oral stories became our reports to the donors that we raise funding from. So basically what I'm trying to point to is that each of these things made us relook and change the manner in which a funding organization learns from its own grantees. And at the same time, this is for us a pilot of ensuring that the artists and scholars and researchers, their community can actually have an agency and voice in the relationships they choose with their funders. It has been an incredible sort of journey for us, and when we sort of finished this project and we sat down and said, okay, we've learned so much. There are a couple of other projects, but you can go to our website and see them. I won't have time to share with you those projects. But so we said, can we put down what we want independent funding organizations to look like to deal with the changes that I mentioned, as well as working with our grantees. And we came out with 7 things, 7, as I would call, signs of funding organizations of the future. And this is our wish list. The first one, independent with flexible, nimble processes. We have to have independent funding parallel with government and other kinds of funding. One way of funding is not enough. We have to have diverse ways of funding. Deep contextual understanding to get under the skin and not look at projects and not remotely manage projects, but really get under the skin of the people who live the arts and not just look at it as projects. Dynamic programs that are reviewed and re-looked at by the arts community. Get experts from the arts community, artists, theatre makers, filmmakers to re-look at your program and figure out what should be prioritized at the next step. Multilingual and multicultural organizations strategically. We hire people who have an arts background. We have poets, filmmakers, film practitioners of theatre, music, who become program officers, and they have parallel lives as artists because only artists can truly understand the processes that go behind making of work. We speak about 8 languages within the office, and we accept proposals in 36 languages. So we have to have so many translators. People can write to us in any Indian language, including English. Building discourses from within. Learn from ourselves as much as we learn from others. So have a lot of conversations amongst ourselves and learn from each other. Collaborations and partnerships, which I think is very important. We don't work in silos anymore. We can't. We are too small and too little. We have to build solidarities with other like-spirited organizations where we can chat and create programs together. And the final one, this is my favorite, artists should speak to surgeons, barbers, and trees, because I think we need to speak to sectors. I even don't like calling it like a sector. It already seems like with boundaries. But actually talk to people who do different kinds of things. And if the arts is a way, arts and culture is a way of building critical citizens, then, and not necessarily good citizens who obey, but citizens who are critical and question and build new things, then that's the kind of conversations that we would need. Thank you.
Thank you, Arundhati, for the wonderful thoughts, and well done for managing to catch up with a lack of technology to help you with the presentation. So occasionally, it may not always be needed. But there's a little thought there which we may want to carry as forward, even as arts councils, on how to make art funding programs more human and not seeing artists as projects, but as human beings. And I shall carry that, I promise, in my day job. Well, actually, this is part of it. But of course, we're collectively hinting here at, whether we like it or not, the rights of every human being to access culture, to participate in culture, and with technology, without technology, how that develops and makes a difference in our daily life. And of course, this leads us to a conversation on diversity. Jo Verent, our next speaker, believes that diversity is delicious and not divergent, and she also produced award-winning jams. Ladies and gentlemen, Jo Verent, senior producer of Unlimited from the United Kingdom.
Okay, here's hoping the tech works. My name's Jo Verent. I'm the senior producer for Unlimited, a commissions programme that funds disabled-led work. We're currently the world's largest commissioning programme supporting disabled artists, and we say that simply to encourage another country to put more money in and take over. I'm a case study. I'm going to tell you a bit about Unlimited, what we do, why we exist, our challenges, and the approaches we take to overcome them. So, we have 3 key focuses. We commission high-quality artwork. We ensure this work tours widely and that the artists forge long-term, sustainable connections within the cultural sector. And ultimately, we exist to transform how people think about disability. Not to make people think that disability means that we're superhuman, or to make disability exclusively positive, but to make disability nuanced, varied, diverse, real, our multiple experiences, another facet of being human. We support artists across all art forms, artists with all types of impairment, artists with all manner of political and non-political stances. Work such as Cozy by playwright Kate O'Reilly, Naomi Latmeyer's 48-hour durational installation Cherophobia, where she was suspended from 20,000 helium party balloons. Him by Sheila Hill, performed by Tim Barlow, now in his 80s. Spoken Word by Jack Dean. TV Classics by Cameron Morgan, an artist with a learning disability. Assisted Suicide, the Musical, by Liz Carr, who's a television, she's on a BBC television programme within the UK. Pioneer by Maki Yamazaki, a computer game that subverts the normative nature of characterizations within gaming culture. The Doorways Project by Becky Perriman, a sound installation giving voice to homeless culture. All work that is challenging, provocative, critically acclaimed, and often award-winning. We're currently calling out for new work to support, new work to commission. But I'll let a video speak a little bit more about that and give myself a rest. Unlimited is a commissions programme for disabled artists and disability-led companies. It's run by SHAPE and Arts Admin working together, and we commission disabled artists to make extraordinary work across all art forms.
We're currently launching a call out for new work by disabled artists across 3 strands. We've got the main commission programme for established artists, we've got an international commission programme, and we've got a new one for emerging artists.
We've had some really exciting work come out from our last round of commissions.
We funded theatre, dance, music, visual art, sculpture, but there's still room for more. There are still some art forms that we haven't quite touched. This time round, we're really excited. We have 3 different commission strands that you can apply for. The main strand of Unlimited's commissions programme is available for established artists, artists who already have a practice, who are working across any art form.
We are looking for work which is either at a research and development stage or a little bit further on that can be realised into a full commission.
It's about your ideas. It's about giving us an idea of something that we simply can't say no to.
Unlimited International is looking to commission collaborations between disabled artists living in England and Wales, working in collaboration with disabled artists living internationally.
It's a really amazing opportunity to work internationally and to really exchange skills across the world. The programme that we're running for emerging artists, I'm really excited about. It's the first opportunity that we've had to really offer emerging artists the same equal level of platform as our established artists.
It's a great opportunity to showcase and show off all your talent and all your skills. So please apply.
Okay, I'm going to cut it off there because we're tight on time, but it's available online. I'll put a tweet out later. So, now you know what we do, why do we do it, and how do we do it. First of all, we're not an organisation. We're a time-limited programme funded primarily through strategic diversity funds from Arts Council England, with a wide network of partners. We're a deliberate construct. We're delivered by two organisations working together, Shape Arts, a disability-led arts organisation, and Arts Admin, a producing and presenting organisation for contemporary artists, with myself as an independent third party as senior producer. We gained additional funding from Arts Council of Wales, Creative Scotland, and a trust called the Spirit of 2012. We now also have funding from the British Council, and we have many partners, including South Bank Centre in London, Tramway in Glasgow, and over 300 allies, festivals, venues, and organisations who have aligned themselves with us. However, we should not have to be here. We should not have to exist. We exist to counteract the systemic discrimination against disabled artists within the cultural sector, to counteract the continued oppression of disabled people globally within all sectors. We're disability-led. That means, unsurprisingly, led by disabled people. Our senior management team includes more disabled people than non-disabled people, as does our staff team, as do all our selection panels. And the work we support, without exception, has disabled people in creative control. We do not believe that you counteract discrimination and oppression by keeping power. You counteract it by passing power and control into the hands of those you have previously oppressed. You do not say, "You're not ready. You're not trained. You're not able." If you do, what you're really saying is, "You're not like us yet." No, we're not. That is our strength and not our weakness. We may do things differently, and who knows, we may even do things better. We're underpinned by the social model of disability. That means I do not see my disability being my hearing loss, or my fatigue, or the weakness in my joints. My disability is the lack of provision that society makes for my needs. The lack of captions or subtitles. The physical barriers present in many buildings. The attitude many people have towards me simply when they hear the word disability and assume that I am less competent than they are. We believe that the arts are a perfect vehicle for transforming perspectives on disability. Here, in a work by Sue Austin, the wheelchair can no longer be perceived as limitation, but instead a tool of liberation. If everywhere were physically accessible, then using a chair would not be a disadvantage. The roots of the disability arts movement in the UK began with political civil action in the 1970s. She wears a T-shirt with a slogan borrowed from Star Trek: "To boldly go where everyone has gone before." Unlimited was originally created for London 2012, the year the Paralympic opening ceremony ensured disability arts in the UK took the spotlight under the world's gaze. To get there, our artists have had to grow. They've had to be given time, investment, and support. They've had to be allowed to take risks. Much of the early work was angry, funny, political, perhaps a little rough around the edges. Many artists had had no training because the training was inaccessible, but they've always had great ideas. And artists producing work back then continue to make work now, high-profile, skilled work that can match the quality of any other artist working in the UK today, disabled or not. For example, sculptor Tony Heaton created the piece on your left, Great Britain from a Wheelchair, back in the 1970s. He went on to create the second piece here for the television broadcaster Channel 4 in 2012, where it was sited directly outside their offices. Unlimited is part of raising disabled artists' aspirations, expectations, and achievements. Another example. In 2012, we funded Paul Cummings. He had an unlimited commission to create an English flower garden in ceramics. In 2014, he gained a new commission for the Tower of London. Yes, the one with the poppies. But please don't be misled. The UK still has issues for disabled people. Austerity has meant that we increasingly again face discrimination. Routinely, we're seen as lesser, as objects of pity. We're still not represented. And we address this by being extremely focused in what we do. We commission high-quality art product. We do not do this for charity, but because we feel that disabled artists have something new, vibrant, compelling, innovative, and evocative to offer the arts world. These are voices we haven't heard before, telling us stories in ways that often we haven't experienced before. In England, we call this the creative case, the way in which diverse practice in its own right has something to offer the very development of art itself. Put simply, it's not that we need you, it's that you need us. We do not want your charity, your pity, or your help. We want equality, to be recognised as artists and creatives, to have our needs met, and to be respected for our vision, our values, and most of all, our art. We do not and cannot exist in a vacuum. There are many other arts organisations covering aspects that are different or overlap. We're a single piece of the whole. For example, Shape Arts, that I've mentioned, work nationally and internationally, providing access, support, and programmes. SYNC is a leadership development programme focusing on the interplay between disability and cultural leadership, the theme of our conference here. And Unlimited works extensively with the British Council, and I thank them and Ithaca and Arts Council Malta for inviting me to the summit this week and ensuring that my needs are met so that I can be here as your equal. Alongside the commissions, Unlimited's focus is always on what's changed. What is the impact? Are we helping the cultural sector diversify its practice? Is the role that we're playing working? For us, disabled people are not aliens. We're human beings with the same rights as every other human being. And we should have the same rights as everyone to be engaged in culture. But currently, we don't. Disabled people are disabled because of the barriers that are in place within our societies. Barriers created by those societies. Barriers that are created by the structures and the systems that some of the people in this room safehold and safeguard. Remove the barriers, give us the power and control, and let us fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. You said that you shouldn't be here, but I'm very glad you are here to inspire and share your thoughts with all of us. Before opening up giving the word to the floor, I'd like perhaps, I don't know if you have any comments or observations related to what you spoke about, perhaps as a reaction to what the other panelists have been talking about, perhaps even indicating a little bit and developing further the thought which Joe presented in terms of where you said that you cannot counteract discrimination by keeping power. And clearly, this is evident in your work. Is there a level playing field, be it in terms of the instrument, the legal instrument, in terms of the convention, the use of technology and the engagement there, be it in terms of your work in the projects? And of course, we've heard from Joe's position there. Perhaps Danielle, or do we? Yeah.
Well, I think we can all agree that there is no level playing field. We see that we can prove that through the evidence that we're either collecting through statistics, case studies, through the different interventions we've heard today, or throughout even years. So I think what we are all trying to do, though, is to create different types of measures going towards achieving a level playing field, but we are very far away from that.
So we're just laughing because it's quite hard to hear up here, but because I can lip read, I have an advantage, so I can lip read on the big screen.
I barely hear.
Yeah, that's why I have my...
I don't know, aren't that?
Yeah, so I wanted to share a little thing after listening to Joe. So I work with an organization called Blind with Camera. They're essentially people who can't see, and they are photographers. So I was sharing this story with Joe, which I want to share with everybody here, that one day we were having lunch with the photographers, and I asked about something, and Samir, who was standing next to me, one of the photographers, replied saying, Arundhati, this is what it is. And I look at him and said, Samir, you can't see me. How do you know it's me? So he says, I can hear you. What it did to me was, it was like that we receive power from the manner in which we are conditioned to live our lives, and we see our sensory world specifically, as well as our social and other worlds, through those circles that we are conditioned with. The moment one of that is taken away and we have to readjust, we realize that it's so dynamic. I mean, so in terms of, if you are talking in terms of power and control, it is this shift that, so immediately what shifted in me is seeing is only one way of seeing the world. It was a whole new experience.
Octavio, don't know if you have any comments about that at this point? Well, we can open up the floor for any questions or observations, and I see a lot of hands. Perhaps we'll start from the gentleman in the front.
My name is Arif Zaman. I'm one of the directors of a social enterprise called the Commonwealth Business Women's Network. I just wanted to ask Danielle your remarks about, I wanted to ask this in the question in the light of the decision of the UNESCO Executive Board, which I would shorten by STEM to STEAM, looking and bringing in art, innovation and design into the STEM area. And I asked that question in light of your goals 2 and 4, which you put up, but also in respect of the development of the creative industries, and in particular the focus on women's economic empowerment, which only last month at the UN level, the Secretary General's high-level panel has given greater meaning and momentum to with the report that came out. And Arundhati, today is the first day ever we've had a Commonwealth-wide crowdfunding campaign on anything, and it's actually supporting specifically women, and particularly women in the creative industries and other areas. So crowdfunding, the launch of that is actually today, but crowdfunding, to what extent does that open up opportunities, particularly in the creative industries, to address some of the issues you've highlighted?
I think, yep.
I can't remember who it was yesterday who said that there were certain issues that were identified 10, 20 years ago, I think it was Anik, that we're still working on today. One of those is gender equality. Even when I was working at the ERICARS, European Institute for Cultural Policy Research, we did, over a period of 10 years, a lot of research to collect data on the status of women working in the cultural sector just in Europe. But what we saw then is what we still see today. Just through the little bit of data that exists in that we've been able to collect through the implementation of this convention, is that nothing has really changed. The representation of women in decision-making positions has not necessarily increased. There is an enormous amount of women who are entering different professional fields in universities, in cultural management courses. We see fields where women used to dominate, for example, in film editing, and now that the new technologies have come in fact, we see a decline of women working in the digital editing fields. So this is still a problem and is still one of those issues which is part of our longer-term visions, that we don't want to get distracted at the crossroads with many other issues that are coming up. We need to continue to work on issues of gender equality, and we need to continue to collect evidence of the status of women working in these sectors, because if we don't do that, we won't have the transparency we need to make the decisions that we need.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Marina Barham, and I come from Palestine. I don't have a question, but I have a comment about what Arundhati said, because yesterday we were talking about the fact that when we report to donors, many times we have a lot of delays in reporting because the justification would be that we were under curfew, or we couldn't implement something because our city was bombed, or people couldn't reach the place because the checkpoint was closed. And I'm really, really proud to hear that your organization is trying to understand what the artists on ground are going through, and that you are adapting your procedures to their needs and not the opposite. Because what is happening really in the, let's say, the EU funding and the big donors is that they are turning to the digital world, which is really far away from the community. So now you don't even have people that you write to. You write online applications, and everything has to go digital. And a lot of people are not online, and a lot of people who are doing great work on the ground are not digital, and they don't have access to the digital world. So I'm really proud to hear this. The second thing I wanted to say to Joe, the Unlimited project, we are starting in Palestine as a theater to work, and we do a lot of work about people with disability, with people with disability. And we're proud to say that for the first time, we had an actress who is blind in one of our performances, and we toured with it, and she was magnificent. She wasn't trained, she didn't come from the arts background, but she was a great actress. She was very natural, very funny. And as Arundhati said, when I was traveling with her and I was using words like I see and look, she would tell me, did you forget that I'm blind? So it's a world that needs to be really looked at. And I urge all the art councils who are here, because I've been meeting heads of arts councils from every country, and I'm very happy to see from all the globe people who are here. And by the way, there are lots of women here, more than men I saw, who come from the arts world, which is the opposite in our area, that we don't have a lot of women in the arts world. But I urge all the Arts Council to think about people on the ground and artists who are working, because they need to be treated as humans, not as projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. There's a question someone asked at the back. I don't know if you would like to, before that, react to that.
Yeah, maybe.
Octavio.
No, just regarding the digital issues, it's true that there is a clear divide between Europe and the global South, and I'm expanding a bit the debate here, but it doesn't mean that the global South, be it Middle East, Africa, Latin America, India, are not using very, very actively digital technologies. In that case, maybe the digital technology proposed by the European agency, and I'm aware, I know a lot of cases that have this problem too. The technological transfer projects or cooperation projects that link Europe and the rest of the world have this problem that they don't actually understand the local ecosystem, the local digital ecosystem. I was, for example, very recently in Cuba. And if you go there, you will see that the internet is it's not very powerful. It's just 2G and you have just a few 3G spots. But everyone has a super mobile phone. You will be impressed by that. And Cuba is one of the countries in the world that consumes more cultural goods and services in digital format. How come? They don't have any internet or almost any internet. Because they built a distribution service based on people on motorbikes and bikes that go across the island. It's mainly non-authorized copies, of course. But so you go with your pen drive, you pay $1, and you get films and music. But in terms of digital infrastructure, that's very, very strong. So there are lots of things going on in our countries. And that's one example of Cuba, but I also done a lot of research in Africa. I went to Burkina Faso, South Africa. And you can find amazing examples. So I just wanted to say this in terms of not believing, we should not believe that in the South, well, we don't have digital. So that's a European problem or an American problem. No, we have digital, but digital, as I try to say, is something very cultural. So digital is like a language, and there is not just one language. There are a plurality of digital ecosystems in the world, and we should pay attention to each local ecosystem before doing anything.
I just want to mention one thing about this. This is very important to us, the relationships between grantees and funders. I think what often happens is that as organizations grow larger and you start looking at more and more money and it becomes more people, you stop asking yourself, why do we do what we do? And it's been very important for some of us to keep asking ourselves the question, why do we do what we do? Why do we exist? We exist because there is a field and there's arts and culture people and they have dreams and we exist to serve that community. Therefore, from time to time, it's also important to have the field review you. It's hard because you have done a lot of good work, but what you normally receive when you invite people to review you is a lot of brickbats and not enough bouquets probably. But it's good because what that does is that enables you to really look at yourself, your processes, systems, and the values that you stand by continuously, not only through the eyes of yourself, your chosen evaluators or your board and donors, but actually through the eyes of people that you really serve and how relevant you remain over a longer period of time, because dreams and aspirations and needs of the field keep changing in this very dynamic world. So I think, why do we do what we do? And then hearing, are we doing what we're supposed to do from people you're doing it for, that dialogue is something that needs to continuously happen. I think it doesn't happen enough.
I think you would go for the question at the back.
Hi, my name is Valencia Utabarat. I'm from Indonesia. I'm here with the ASEF delegation. My question to the panel is what is the current discussion about digital as the future way of cultural distribution? Because I think for the younger generation, digital has been used to surpass civil censorship, to surpass borders, and also to provide more equal access to information. The second one is, has there been any discussion with the digital giants like Google, because Google also provide Google art platforms, or Netflix, who are producing now their own cultural content? Has there been any discussion to push them to support the cultural sector more, because it has benefited them, and now I feel like they have to give back also to the cultural sector? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Would like to have anyone would like? Danielle? Or Octavio?
Well, I think Octavio is the best place to answer this question. I can just add a little parenthesis. that the Intergovernmental Committee for the Convention, meeting in Paris in December, will discuss and adopt new guidelines on the interpretation of the Convention in the digital environment. These guidelines are online now, so you can consult them, and I encourage you all to do so and to get in touch with your representatives who come to these committee meetings, because they address a lot of fundamental issues that we've discussed here: freedom of artistic expression, preferential treatment, mobility, cultural cooperation. And one thing that I just wanted to mention is on electronic commerce, because yesterday we had a very interesting discussion on the flows of cultural goods and services, on the different trade agreements that are being negotiated as we sit here. But one thing that we didn't talk a lot about so far is the dissemination, as Octavio has said, of electronically based cultural goods and services. And this can be cultural expressions which are electronic or digitized themselves, or the transmission of traditional type of cultural goods and services which are transmitted over digital platforms. And this is right now the biggest issue we're trying to deal with in the area of trade and trade negotiations. And next year we will launch a new program to work with trade negotiators on how to handle this, because we see in the bilateral trade negotiation world that a lot of the sort of analog cultural goods and services, they're protected, they're outside of the scope of these agreements. But when it comes to electronically disseminated cultural goods and services, this is at the core of the discussion and of the core of these agreements, which is very damaging. So this is the new issues we're working on.
In terms of the tech giants, as you mentioned, Google, Facebook, etc., those are super heavy players, but finding the correct way of dealing with them is not easy, especially because of this lack of information. We should be working more on cultural mappings, national and also international, to have more statistics, to even governments should ask them, the giants, to provide some information. For example, to know how many videos are created by Maltese, Argentinians, Italians, artists and are uploaded in YouTube. We don't really know that. And the same for music, the same for books. There is a lack of information that is right now almost total. So it's very, very difficult to implement any kind of regulation, be it taxes or whatever. So what is the part of those cultural giants in the cultural chain? What is the percentage of money, of the number of works, downloads, etc.? We don't know, and this is urgent. So that's one way of starting to deal with that. And it's a very dynamic scenario. So you have Google, then maybe you will have another giant rising. And then as for censorship, it's true that digital technologies can allow, in several occasions, to overcome that problem for the users. But it will introduce new challenges, such as surveillance. So digital technologies per se are not an opportunity, they are not a challenge, or maybe, if you wish, they are both things. Because in my view, digital technologies are an amplifier of our potential, of the human potential, the human cultural potential. Just like fire. Fire is good, fire is bad. Well, it's maybe both things. Depends on how you use it. It's like the story of the Cherokee story of the two wolves. Well, you have inside one very bad wolf and one very good wolf. Like the bad wolf is evil, is greed and hatred. The good one is love, patience, generosity. Who will win? The one you feed. Yeah. So this is the way we can deal with digital. We have two wolves there.
Would you have any examples, Joe?
Well, I was just going to say, I couldn't do my job without digital technologies. I have a fatigue-related condition. I spend 2 days a week working from bed. So Skype, Google Hangouts, FaceTime, they're my friends. They mean I can work anywhere in the world, but I can stay in one place. But it's paired with the fact that access is an issue. So it has to be both and. We have to have all the digital and technology that we can have, but we also have to provide access at a grassroots level for people who do not have access to that, for financial reasons or other access barriers. So we have to do it in tandem.
And the way, if I may add just a small question, the way you distribute your work, how does technology play an integral part in it?
We really focus, again, if you want to transform the perception of something, then you have to capture it at a very high quality and you have to distribute it well. So we spend a lot of effort on video capture, editing down stuff, pushing high quality videos out there. Because the video of Sue Austin, the underwater wheelchair, has been shared now, I think, over 10 million times. And it's only, we couldn't do that with a static video installation that you had to come in and see. But also, because the cultural sector is so inaccessible, the more we can put up online, actually the more disabled people can open up and see those things too. We provide subtitles, audio description, the access things that we need in order to be able to access online content.
I'd just like to add one thing to it, that not to digital parallelly does all the things that my co-panelists mentioned, but not to forget the power of the live, the power of the human touch, the power of actually being there and seeing it. In some of our countries, maybe it's easier to access culture because it's all around. In some other countries it's not, and digital is doing great stuff there. But what I also see in India is that a lot of young people consume digital content, but it's more like storage. I'll do it later. So they're not coming to live theater, they're not coming to live music. It's all around, it's not even expensive. So it's not a question of that. Not to make the digital so important that live goes into the museum, because there is something about the sensory, the tactile, the visceral experience of the arts that is live. And one can't sort of replace the other. That's all I have to say, especially for young people who are constantly on devices. We don't speak anymore, we don't touch anymore.
And clearly this also creates a little bit of a problem when we talk about now culture statistics in terms of defining a live performance with a film, what happens when the film is part live or it's a transmedia project, or when a live theater is actually screened, and that's in terms of UNESCO's work on cultural statistics, kind of, again, these kind of boundaries and blurring when something becomes, in terms of distribution, how has that been consumed? If we had to take a statistic today on how many people are following the actual summit, where maybe people are just following it through Twitter, others are just watching it live streamed, others are physically here. So at least we can have coffee and a chat, which adds a little bit more there to the experience. I know there's another, there's a question.
There's one over here.
Oh, yeah, we'll conclude this section first. We'll move sections.
My name is Rosemary Mangope and I'm from South Africa. And I really would like us to talk about technology and its enabling abilities. It's not one or the other. The fact is, we live in a technological era, and we're finding that technology is helping people in the rural areas leapfrog against issues like the lack of infrastructure, the lack of roads, the lack of banking. People are using their mobile devices more and more to actually access the rest of the world. So what we need to be doing is to say, what is it that we're going to be doing to ensure that there is access for broadband, there is access for networks, and that are strong. And also, it's making creativity much more easier. People that are living in remote areas are able to put their stuff online. So we should be coming on board in order to make sure that we actually utilize and harness the power of technology to also teach. We can do e-learning. We can have exhibitions that are inaccessible to people be actually streamed online. For example, Africa is called the cradle of humanity, and we have the cradle of humankind in South Africa, and we have an origin center with a whole lot of exhibition to show, but it's too expensive to make that kind of exhibition travel because of the insurance that comes with it, but then people can access it online. So I think the more we open up this conversation, and we're not saying replace one with the other, Arundhati, I'm not going there, and I'm not saying that it should be used for to more disengage, to help people disengage more. I'm saying let's embrace it. And while we're embracing it, let's see how best to harness its power. We are living in the 4th industrial revolution. It is about technology.
Thank you, Rosemary. Octavio?
Yeah, in my view, the important thing is to use low-tech. That's for the Global South, low-tech. That is to say, seeing technology as something very flexible, not like high-tech. High-tech is closed, proprietary, you take it as it is. But low-tech, you can use mobile phones and 3G connections. You don't need fixed broadband. And Sub-Saharan Africa in low-tech is a superpower, a global superpower. For example, which is a leader in terms of mobile payments in the world. One of the leaders is Kenya with M-Pesa. They started 10 years ago. And it's a very simple system to send money by SMS. And this is just starting to happen in Latin America. Kenya was doing this in 2007. And there are lots of examples of how low-tech can be used. And the important thing, I insist, is not to see technology as something that we may use, but rather as something that we have inside already. We are a technological animal. Our fingers are technology, our language is technology. The way we use fire is technology. So if we, keeping with the fire metaphor, if we take a cake that has been baked, cooked, well, it may be cold, and you will feel or you will think that fire has nothing to do with it, but it has been baked, so it has passed through a fire, a heat process. The same with technology. Technology is already here. We are post-digital. It's not something that we can choose or not. If we don't choose it, it will choose us. Somebody else will do it. I mean, I don't want to personify technology, but the thing is that if we don't actively use it, with low-tech, somebody else with high-tech from abroad will land with its own solutions.
There was one question from this side. Did I see a hand here? No, back there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I can go?
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Adrian from Zambia. My comment and question goes to Gosh. Thank you so much for sharing your story and the model that you are doing. I'll go a bit off topic in terms of the question. What practical steps are we taking to pass on the skills and experiences that you have, especially to the new generation? Because I think you've learned quite a lot, and the model is something that I hope we can use one day in our country. What are we doing to share with young people? Are there any leadership kind of things we are doing to train others in terms of the methods that we're using and the philosophy that we have gained? Thank you.
Thank you.
Two things come to mind. One is that we try within the country to speak as much as we can with each other. And in a lot of those conversations, a lot of the philosophy, the values, the reasons why we do what we do, the structure systems get talked about, challenged. But I think that more than actively teaching sort of the next generation, many of them are actually challenging and teaching us because they are experiencing life and the arts in different ways and are posing questions that often we find difficult to answer. So I think it's more like comradeship than like a guru and disciple kind of approach. So I guess the learning is happening through peers and from each other. And there are many, I mean, we could speak separately, specifically about some of the things that we do. But there are lots of such opportunities to actually talk, discuss, challenge each other and learn from each other.
We go for the question at the back.
I just wanted to comment about the digital issues. I kind of don't think that we are post-digital. I think we are digitally infused society. And this makes the technology issue very important because it kind of defines our life, what is possible and what is not. Problem here is that big players are in fact controlling the development. Policies not controlling development. Policies are usually reacting with several years post-momentum, really. And what I wanted to say is that I find very important the adjective that we use. I like the low-tech examples very much because we shouldn't be, for instance, impressed with smart technologies. We should make sure that we are allowing development in a way that this technology would empower people. And so maybe we should choose adjectives like social. You know, whatever is only technologically focused is maybe misleading us. Thank you.
Is it misleading us?
Yeah, in any case, technology will do nothing for us. We'll do something with technology or not. So I think that's a good approach.
We go for the question from the gentleman there.
Hello, my name is Maniot Neuvel. Right, I remember I was involved back in 1999 in a project called Virtual Olympics. Well, we were doing a research during that period for people with special needs. So we needed to see how this digital innovation and initiative called the Virtual Olympics will work for people who have special needs. So I went to an institution, a foundation, and I met this director there, and she said to me, you know something, let me guide you and introduce you to the children being here. So I went there and I faced all these issues, but I could only see these issues that those children had. And she said to me, you know, these children have a great difficulty even to touch a fork or a spoon. So what we actually need here is people to work with us. And then we could think about technology. For me, technology lives in a very specific place, which is actually the hardware. So information moves very nicely on its natural environment. And then it's basically how we use the information, because information is like, as Nicolas Negroponte said, it's like a knife. You can either cut some bread, or you can, it can be used in other ways. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another comment from the very back.
Yes, hello. My name is Erwin Maas from the Netherlands, but based in New York. I've been trying to see if the technology is working by tweeting some things that have not been showing up there. So let me do it in person. We've been talking a lot about the Global South and the presence or not presence of that. So I just wanted to make a brief comment that this afternoon we actually have a session that really showcases cases from the Global South and Africa at 4 o'clock in a long table session. So I just wanted to announce that, so people are aware of that.
Thank you for that plug. And
yeah, just one short comment with an example of, thank you, Octavio, for talking about low-tech and context-specific technology. Because what's also happening is that things trend in the world, right? Globally, things trend, and then our politicians pick it up. So in India, it seems we are going to be making smart cities. I'm really scared because we don't even have enough water in our cities. There's a huge groundwater crisis. There's a huge crisis of too many cars and more probably cars than people in some of the cities. We don't have tree cover. We are losing it every time a new bridge comes up. And we are going to be making smart cities. So that scares me, because when you think of technology as high tech, as something that's not contextual, that doesn't come from your needs, that can be very dangerous, because that's other invested ideas being put onto you. So, but on the other hand, the same Mir musicians that I talked about, they have cell phones, very basic cell phones. They are recording, so when they go to from village to village, they're recording each other's music and playing it to each other. They're getting calls to festivals because somebody else in some other village has listened to someone's cell phone recording of, so that's the technology that makes sense to them. So I think we have to remember the context in which we are talking about technology. So,
do we have a time for final round? Do I see any? Yep, Andreas.
Yes, I'm supposed to stand up, okay, no problem. Andreas Wiesand, we have just finished a handbook on culture and human rights under the title of the Wroclaw Commentaries, because it's being launched in the European Capital of Culture, Wroclaw. And it has about 130 articles, and quite a number of them deal with the questions you have been discussing now. And what struck me when I read these contributions from experts from around the world is that there is a clash, sort of, between those who are defending sort of established property or property rights on the one hand, and those arguing for the right to participate in cultural life enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other treaties, or call for the protection of the diversity of cultural expressions or cultural diversity, two different things. And this clash between the property side, mostly supported by commercial companies, of course, called social networks, and the other one needs a balancing. And I would wish that those policymakers, maybe some in the room here, would address also this clash and this need to balance in order to secure participation in cultural life for all, that it is not halted just because of borders of property. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other contributions? Yep, the gentleman in the front.
Thank you for the presentations. My name is Melvin Henley. I'm from the US. And my question really boils down to a lot of the presentations that you all presented were fantastic. But one of the main issues is a lot about education, right? So you need to educate the people that you're representing, educating them on the information and the wants and needs, but also you need to also educate the communities that you're working with, and then the outside world. And I was just wondering, can you, everyone on the panel, if you can just kind of give a brief overview of some of the ways in which you're using education to either change the narrative of the organizations or the foundations that you're working with, or changing the expectations or the thought processes of the people that you're representing to another entity or another community.
Thank you for your question. Danielle?
Well, actually, what we decided not to do was exactly that. We decided to listen and not to go out and educate people what is the convention, to tell them what it's about. Everything I presented today was based on 10 years worth of listening. And I remember when I first met Mike, I don't know if Mike is here, Mike Van Gran from the Arterial Network, when it was first set up. I met him in person and he said, well, what is the convention? And I said, well, why don't you tell me what is the convention? And he went on to set up reading groups in Africa through Arterial Network to tell us what is the convention, and this is what we've been trying to do. So education is one thing, but I think right now what's really important, especially after everything we've heard today and this morning, is to listen. Thanks.
Yeah, in my view, in terms of, in my field, publishing and digital technologies, the most important is to take education as a synonym of experimentation and sharing and exchanging experience with others. I belong to a very large network of independent publishers from the Global South. It's the International Alliance of Independent Publishers, and we regularly meet together and we exchange a lot by email about new experiences, for example, new approaches on digital technologies, what is doing somebody in Tunisia, what is doing somebody in Brazil, and we share all this. So a lot of experimentation and sharing.
Yeah, I would just find it very uncomfortable. I mean, I agree with what Danielle said, years of listening. Very uncomfortable that one community or culture actually believes that it can educate another. I find that hugely disrespectful in some ways, actually. So I think we have conversations. As a funding organization, what we can do is create environments and structures within which there are safe spaces to have those conversations, and there are networks and connections and bridges that can be built if the communities want to. And anything else would be an imposition on them and what they want. So there are communities, actually there's one community that has told, it lives in a little island in the middle of Bay of Bengal, that has told the Indian government that, sorry, we don't want schools, we are happy. We don't want hospitals, we are happy. This is our community, this is how we want to live. And that's fine. An attempt to educate that community, I think, would be an impingement on their human rights to a certain extent.
I think we let the art do the educating in many ways. I think by putting nuanced, varied, three-dimensional pieces out in the world rather than a very bland, representational, single narrative out there, the more stories we have out there, the more artists we can support, the more role models there are, the more things. I know when I started to lose my hearing when I was 13, I didn't see anybody like me. It wasn't visible. There wasn't anything that I could think, oh, I could do that. And I kept being told, oh, you won't. I was taken out of drama school or drama club because they said it would be an unrealistic expectation to earn my living through communicating, which is sadly quite ironic now. I wanted to be a Blue Peter presenter, actually, anybody who watched Blue Peter. But I wanted somebody that I could see that represented someone like me. And so I think the more mainstream, as well as the more, it's everything, it's all of it. We've just got to get representation more balanced, and it will do the education for us.
So that's us, that's all the time we have to get this conversation going. We need to wrap up because it's time for lunch. However, I'd like to thank you all for sharing your thoughts, ideas, and inspiring this process. And please continue doing what you're doing with so much love. Thank you. Before we leave the room, I have a little announcement for the open sessions. We've issued a call for open sessions, and I'd like to read the sessions, which are actually quite exciting. So if you'll give me just a couple of seconds to go through them. The sessions will be held in the Sacra Infermeria. That's right opposite where lunch is being served. And that's in this afternoon's session. So I'm going to read quickly the list and the persons who will be contributing. So Marie Lesourd from On the Move, The Way Towards Creative Climate Leadership. Adrian De Battista from Arts Council Malta, Enhancing Cultural Leadership Through Value-Based Audience Data. Fatima Avila, Project Executive, Asia Europe Foundation, on the ASEF Cultural Mobility Fund, Addressing Cultural Leadership. Arif Zaman, Executive Director of FRSA, Commonwealth Business Women's Network, Commonwealth Connectivity, Creativity and Collaboration in the Creative Economy, Monica Garcia, about Carta Cultural Iberoamericano, Catherine Bond from King's College London on leading culture in the 21st century, Karen Dahlberg, talk about the FICA project, a cultural leadership initiative, Jonathan Price, Robert Gordon University, cultural leadership at the place of the artist, Isabel Thompson, international coordinator, music platform, shared cultural leadership, Janet Archer, CEO of Creative Scotland, next steps for the CCIs in the context of Brexit, Richard Russell, Director in Policy and Research at Arts Council England, on behalf of the European Research Partnership and Cultural and Creative Spillovers, Culture Counts for All, the Cultural and Creative Spillovers, Monica Amari, Armes Progetti, Governance from the Bottom Up, Panagiotis, founder and president of Arts Council of Greece, Cultural Left, a critical left approach on cultural leadership, Marisa Shed, capacity building project manager at Ariel Network, African woman in cultural leadership. So that's happening later on this afternoon. Enjoy your lunch and enjoy the conversations. Woo! What a list.